Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for coming in to the Empirical Miracle channel. I'm your host, Empirical Miracle, and today we're going to be watching a NDE video that really resonated with me. And I've been following this lady. Her name's Dolores Cannon, and she passed away like 10 years ago. But she used to do hypnosis, and she kind of just fell into this past life regression stuff because as she was hypnotizing people, then all these people would come in and the spirit, your higher self, would say, hey, talking about past lives and stuff. So she's done like hundreds or thousands of past life regressions. And so, what's up, Fake Mike? Thanks, bro. So I was listening to this NDE, and this is on the channel. Let's see what the channel is. Passion Harvest Podcast. Or wait, hold on, that's not like Passion Harvest Podcast. Yeah, that's it. And I was listening to it last night when I fell asleep, and so I didn't really get the whole everything on it, but I was listening to it, and I fell asleep, and I kind of woke up, and so, but it was really resonating with me. Everything that he's saying is really coincides with Dolores Cannon. So that's why I wanted to kind of watch this one, and it's 52 minutes long. It's kind of long, but pause it here and there just to give my little 2 cents and stuff. But so we'll just jump right into it. I was having some issues earlier. So this is it.
I physically left my body, my consciousness, my soul, whatever it is that I really am. It left my body, and I could see my body fall to the ground, and I was just kind of floating there. It was obvious that I was more than just this physical body. It was kind of like waking up from a dream, but it was like this physical life was the dream. I was like coming back into a reality that I had previously been in. Like I felt comfortable like that. I knew that I had been like that before. I had just forgotten about it while I was living this life.
Aaron Green, welcome to Passion Harvest. I'm excited to have you on the show today, and I can't wait to hear about your incredible experiences. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for giving me the chance to share my experience. So my experience started when I was a kid, shortly before my 6th birthday. I had been playing with some friends in a neighbor's backyard, and I'm not sure what happened, but I couldn't breathe. Like, no matter what I did, I couldn't get a breath of air into my lungs, and I was becoming more and more upset and concerned about this. Obviously, that's a problem if you can't breathe. So I was trying to start to go home to go get help from my parents, but I didn't make it very far. I only got maybe 20 feet away from my friends, and the breathing problem triggered something. I didn't pass out, but I physically left my body, my consciousness, my soul, whatever it is that I really am. It left my body, and I could see my body fall to the ground, and I was just kind of floating there next to my body, observing the scene. And it quickly became apparent. A couple things were very obvious right away. It was obvious that I was more than just this physical body. It was clear that time somehow works differently outside of this physical body. I'm not sure I could really explain it, but like I could feel it. I could feel that time wasn't working the same way, and it was kind of like waking up from a dream, but it was like this physical life was the dream, and I was like coming back into a reality that I had previously been in. Like,
I will just say one thing. This guy seems pretty cool. He's a little bit dorky, but I wonder why he decided to do this interview in his closet. Right? Like, there's this bar, there's clothes there. I thought that was kind of weird, but anyways.
I felt comfortable like that. I knew that I had been like that before. I had just forgotten about it while I was living this life. And I looked back at my friends, and everything that had seemed so important, everything that they were doing, it seemed completely trivial, like it didn't matter at all. And almost immediately, my entire life up to that point replayed for me. like almost like automatically. And the difference was I didn't just experience my life over again from my perspective, but it's like I could feel and see other people's what I had caused them to go through. And what really stood out is my parents, because I had the most impact on them, and I could see like I could feel how I had impacted them, and I could feel my mother's love for me. That seemed very important. And I could feel some of my father's frustrations at having little children, changing diapers and crying kids, which now as a parent with 3 kids.
Okay, so that's why I don't like doing this whole thing that I'm doing with hitting the mic, because that's why you didn't have any sound. That's why I like to just leave it on, but sometimes there's like feedback. So what I was saying was that this is like a lot of what Dolores Cannon teaches, is that when you die, you do a life review, and it's all within a split second. And um, like he said, time doesn't work the same. But as I was saying, um, you don't just have your life review from your perspective. It's also from everyone's around you perspective, all the people that you impacted, whether it be good or bad. And so that can be difficult too, when you are seeing how people felt when you were talking to them, or something that you did to them, and you get to see all of that and feel all of that. So what I was saying is that, when you are hurting someone, you're just hurting yourself. We all tap into the same consciousness. So we're all just individual souls having our own experience, but we're all just the same. There's really only one thing, and that's you. That's it.
Kids of my own, I totally understand, but I could feel his frustrations. Like I literally could feel them. But it was like self-evident that that wasn't my fault. Like I hadn't done anything wrong. It's just if you have a child, that's the experience you're going to have. So even though I caused his frustration, it also like felt like I hadn't done anything wrong. I was just being a baby. I noticed a light in the distance, and there was something about it that I knew was very important, but I didn't understand what it was. But there was like an instinctive like somehow I was drawn to it. Like I noticed it, I knew it was important, but I didn't understand or remember what it was, so I didn't continue to pay attention to it. And so I would just kind of float there near my body, and I would start to have questions. And as I would have questions, the answer would come to me in pretty extreme detail. It was kind of like I was tapping into spiritual memory, stuff that had happened to me previously, but I had totally forgotten about while I was living this life. So
I've heard that when you see the light, if you go towards the light, which everyone's attracted to the light, like he said, then you get stuck in this trap. It's like a reincarnation trap. You have to keep coming back. Because when you choose to come to Earth, Earth is a school, and it's one of the most difficult schools. There's plenty of planets you can incarnate on, and different dimensions you can incarnate on, where it's not as difficult. This is like the hardest school that there is. But the problem is that if you go to these easier planets or dimensions, it's just the progression is so slow, right? So all of your growth happens when you're uncomfortable, and there's a lot of uncomfortableness on Earth. So I heard that if you go away from the light, then you go back to where you came from, and you don't have to incarnate anymore. At where you come from, I don't know, but I was thinking about, I don't want to come back here. I want this to be my last life. That's why I want to just get everything done that I feel like I'm supposed to get done now, because I don't want to come back. This 3D reality we live in, it's very dense. It's very painful. I mean, you guys know, you're alive too. So I was thinking about going away from the light. See how that works out for me.
One of the questions I had was, what am I? And I was shown what I look like. And I was like a round orb of consciousness with a faint light coming from within. And that's just kind of what I look like in that state. And I had another question: where did I come from? You know, I was trying to put all this stuff together, trying to understand what was going on. And when I had that question, it's like the memory came back to me of something I had previously experienced, but had, you know, forgotten about. And so this memory started out as I had been a round shape orb of light, just like I was there. And I was with thousands of other, you know, orbs of consciousness, just other souls, just like me. And we existed together in a state of happiness and comfort and safety. And it was kind of like, I would call it like an ocean of light or a sea of light. It was very bright, and we were all content, and we didn't really know anything. We were ignorant, and we had no experience, and we were just kind of content to be like that. And periodically a gift would come down to all of us. As a kid, I thought of it like kind of like getting.
Hey, I appreciate everyone that's in here. If you come in, you don't want to hang out too long, you just came in to check it out because you're from the DMA channel, that's cool. If you do me a favor before you go, just hit the like. Thanks, man. Appreciate you guys.
A cookie. And one time there was one fewer gift that came down, as there were souls in this group. And I made the conscious decision that I was going to pass up getting one of these gifts so that all the other souls around me could have one. I knew that they were just like me, and they wanted one of these gifts. So I thought, okay, I'll just let them have the gift and I'll go without. And when the last gift came to the last soul, I was very gently lifted up out of this group, and the care with which I was lifted was really noticeable. Like it was very gently. I was very gently lifted up out of this group. Anyway, a higher level consciousness contacted me, like telepathically, like mind to mind communication, and it basically said that it was my creator, and I was very much loved, and that what I had done was very important, that giving up something that I wanted to benefit those around me was very important, and it indicated that I was ready to begin some kind of process or transition. I was ready to go to the next step, I guess. And I was like, okay, you know, I had no background or reference, and this loving entity contacted me, and so I accepted everything that they said, and you know, for simplicity, I'll just call my creator God. But it was clear that God loved me very much, that God had a wonderful existence prepared for me and for all these other souls. And so God basically explained that we weren't mature enough to appreciate and enjoy all the stuff that God had prepared for us. We had a wonderful existence prepared for us, but we were not able to fully appreciate or enjoy that existence, and that God had a process prepared that would allow us to grow and to learn and to understand things, and that would allow us then to enjoy our existence. It was explained that you know, God was loving, compassionate, kind, honest, empathetic, all these positive traits, and that we were created with free will, and for us to enjoy our existence, we needed to freely adopt those same kind of traits. And by freely adopting those same kind of loving traits, we would be prepared to really enjoy our existence. But God wasn't going to force us to change. We needed to experience some stuff for ourselves, and then choose to have those kind of traits. So God explained that God is loving, compassionate, respectful, kind, honest, caring, and very loving, and that in order for us new souls to enjoy everything that God had prepared for us, we needed to embrace those same traits for ourselves, and that by becoming loving ourselves, we would then be able to enjoy the wonderful existence that God had prepared for us. And so I asked God, couldn't you just change me and make me how I need to be, so I don't need to go through any kind of difficulty? And God assured me that absolutely God was fully capable of changing me and everyone else however he wanted to, but that would violate our free will, and that having free will and be able to make our own choices was a very important, it was like a cornerstone key reason for our creation in the first place. So God wasn't going to violate our free will. We would need to freely choose these kind of traits. And so I accepted that, said, okay, that sounds reasonable. And then God asked me if I would like to see his face before I went on this adventure or education, whatever you want to call it. And so I said, okay, sure.
Sorry, thanks for letting me know, Jack. I keep doing that. I'm just going to leave this on from now on. But what I was saying is that another reason why, when he says, well, you have free will, so I couldn't do that. If you ask God, hey, why do I have to go through this? Why can't you just make it in a different way so that we can just all have pure bliss? It's not only that because you have free will, but it's also because you chose this, right? Remember, there's only one consciousness. So there's really only you. So it's just individual souls having their own experience, right? But it's really just you. So you chose to do this.
And so my attention was turned very gently from the souls I had been with, who I'd been looking at this whole time, and I was turned to this adventure or education, whatever you want to call it. And so I said, okay, sure. And so my attention was turned very gently from.
Okay, so he asked, he wanted to know what God, I guess, asked him if he wants to know what he looks like. I'm just going to rewind this just a little bit.
These kind of traits. And so I accepted that, said, okay, that sounds reasonable. And then God asked me if I would like to see his face before I went on this adventure or education, whatever you want to call it. And so I said, okay, sure. And so my attention was turned very gently from the souls I had been with, who I'd been looking at this whole time, and I was turned to view it like a huge sun-like entity. It looked like a sun, but there was millions and millions and millions of souls all mixed in there together. That like they were all part of this sun, but the sun as its whole was like its own entity also.
So that's what God looks like, he's saying. It's like a mixture of all of the souls together, right? Remember what I said? There's one consciousness and that you chose this. So you are God. And I'm not a Christian. Jesus wasn't a Christian, but there's a lot of good stuff in the Bible. And Jesus said in the scriptures that I am God. And Jesus was a very highly evolved soul that didn't need to incarnate on earth, but he did that to help us because we needed some help to evolve faster. And you have all of the same capabilities that Jesus had. It's just that you don't realize you have it yet because you're not as evolved of a soul as Jesus was. So that's one of the main things that we're here for, is to learn how to create. And Jesus really knew how to create. He knew how to manifest. there's lots of other lessons that you're supposed to learn. I mean, that's really the spiritual purpose of life, is just to learn lessons. And once you learn that lesson, then you go on to the next one and the next one. Again, Earth is a school. But so you are God. So it's like, if God is love, which in the Bible it says God is love, but how would God know that he's love? Right? How would he even know what love is? Unless he experienced the opposite of love, which is fear, right? Like if you were hot your whole life, how would you know that you're hot? You would never know you're hot until you were cold, right? And then you'd be like, oh, I'm cold now. Okay, now I know what hot is. And then you can go back to being hot and you can tell the difference. So duality, right? This 3D reality we live in is duality. So God is like the ocean, right? And then you and me, we're the individual souls in the ocean. We're like the waves in the ocean, right? But it's all the same ocean. See what I mean? Or like your room here, your house. Right now I have air in here. I got the living room air, and I got the kitchen air, and the bathroom air, and the bedroom air, and the hallway air, right? But it's all the same air. That's what God is. That's what he said when, do you want to see my face? And it was like this sun with all of these individual souls in it. So it's like, if I'm my body, right? Like this is me and I'm God. It's like all my fingers, I'm like sticking all my fingers in this goo to like see what it feels like, right? So all my fingers are having their own individual experience, but it's still part of the same God. It's still the same thing.
Kind of like our body is made of a whole bunch of little cells. Well, it's like this face of God was made up of a whole bunch of little souls that were all part of the larger the larger sun-like entity. Anyway, some of the souls came to the surface, and I could see their face clearly, and they welcomed me into existence, and they were extremely happy. I couldn't even describe their happiness, but they were they wanted to welcome me into existence, and they basically were excited that I was joining them, that someday I would eventually come back and join them. And when I did, there's something unique or irreplaceable that I would bring, or any other soul would bring. And so that would actually increase their happiness a little bit, even though they were already ridiculously happy. But there's something that I would add that no other soul could add. And so they were excited about that. And it's the same for all the other souls. Each one was irreplaceable and unique. Like no two were the same. Anyway, so with that, God asked me if I was sure I was ready to.
Unless you're talking about a twin flame, then that is the same soul. So there's, to my knowledge, there's 144,000 twin flame souls, just the 144,000 that the Bible speaks of. So that would be 288,000 individuals. So a twin flame is one soul and two bodies, right? So a soulmate, like people think that soulmates have to be romantic, but they don't. They can be, but most of the time they're not. They're your friends, they're your family members, right? They're all people that are part of your soul tribe. So you have your biological family, and then you have your soul family, right? So all these people that you meet, anyone who had a significant impact on your life in a positive way is in fact a near and dear soulmate, whether they're in your life for 10 years, a year, a couple months, even a day. You can have soulmates that you meet, and you are meant to meet them as part of your soul contract. But a twin flame is different. That's the only exception to what he's talking about. It's literally just two incarnations of the same soul, right? So we're talking about past lives. If you can have a past life, right? If you think of everything linear, like, I lived in 1700 and then 1820 and then now 1980, right? So you have all these lives, and then you have past lives. But if you can have past lives, then you could have two lives in the same timeline, right? That's what a twin flame is.
Go on this difficult adventure, and I accepted and said sure. And like that, I was moving very quickly away from God, and it's like he was still in communication with me mentally, but we like I went somewhere far away. I don't really understand, but I guess it was coming into this physical universe. But we started looking at all these different planets that I could go to, and there was thousands and thousands of planets that we looked at. And I could see, what life was like on these planets, what kind of, I don't know, what was unique to these different places. I don't remember what the specifics of any of these planets, but I do remember that I saw a whole bunch of them, and there was a lot, and they all had the same kind of education where I would be a soul inside some kind of physical body, and I would have the kind of experiences I needed to give me the education that would allow me to freely choose to be loving, kind, compassionate, all that kind of stuff. And eventually we saw Earth, and there was something about this planet. I was absolutely sure this is where I wanted to be. I don't know why exactly, but I was positive that this is where I wanted to be. And God asked me, okay, are you sure? And when I said, yes, I'm sure, then it's like the decision was made, the decision was finalized. And so that was the decision. I was going to be coming to Earth. And so with that, my question had been answered. That memory explained how I got to this place, why I was here. And I was back to like floating next to my body. So then I had another question. Well, how did I become Aaron Green? Like, why am I this person? And so the memory of how I became Aaron Green came back to me. So it started with, I was with some guides. They were basically helping me out. Now in the first memory, I had been a new soul. I didn't have any experience. But in this memory of how I became Aaron Green, it was obvious that I had been through quite a bit. I had lived many lives. I had done a lot of stuff. I understood a whole lot better than I had the first time. But it was clear that I had messed up. I think what happened is I screwed up a previous life and made some mistakes, and I was very frustrated about it. I was hesitant to come back to Earth, and I was in like a rough mental state. And these guides were trying to help me out, trying to help sort me out and get me back where I needed to be. It seems like I had reached a point, like it kind of became obvious with our interactions, that I had reached a point where I could have left behind Earth and moved on to the spiritual realms and not had to come back to Earth. But I wanted to come back to Earth and help make things better, help humanity progress. And then I screwed it all up. It's like I had a good opportunity, and then I made mistakes, and I blundered it. And so I was very frustrated about that. But the guides totally understood all this, and they were trying to help get me back on track. And they wanted me to come back to Earth, and I was very hesitant at first, but eventually they convinced me to consider coming back to Earth, because if I didn't come back to Earth, I would have been kind of like stuck in that frustrated, mildly unhappy state in like a in-between realm. Like I wouldn't have been where I was mentally. I couldn't have moved up into heaven or the happy realms. I would be kind of stuck in this midway realm. So I agreed to consider it, and they showed me essentially that I had done a lot to help build society over the I don't know, thousands of years. I had helped build America. I had been here during the early stages, and so because of that, I was able to come to America, or I was able to come to a first world country, whereas a newer soul who hadn't contributed as much over the last thousands of years, they wouldn't have those same options. And it was kind of like a lot of souls wanted to come to a country like America because life's easier. A lot of things are a little bit more advanced. And I don't just mean America. I mean a lot of the first world countries. But souls who haven't helped build society, they haven't put in the work, they don't necessarily have those same opportunities. But because I had put in a lot of work previously, I was able to choose to come to America. And that was very obvious in what they were showing me. And they also showed me that a lot of the souls in America, they wouldn't necessarily be coming back to America. Like they would have that opportunity, but they might squander that opportunity, and then they would need to come back to a country that maybe wasn't as advanced, based on the decisions they would make. Anyway, so they showed me a family, a life I could lead, and it would have been like I would have been a very angry person. I would have had a lot of anger and resentment. I think what happened, or what would have happened if I'd agreed to this life, is I would have been I think abused as a child, and that would have caused a whole lot of anger and resentment in me. And I would have spent my whole life like working against that anger, like trying to just be calm, trying to not lose my patience or become angry. And by working against that natural tendency to anger, it would really help my soul progress and become a calmer, more peaceful soul. But I rejected that life. I was like, I don't want this. I'm not going to do this. And my guides respected that. And they said, okay, well, let's look at some other options. So we looked at a nearby family that was going to have a baby. And we started looking at, okay, well, what kind of child could they have? And it became obvious that they had the genes available to them for a red-haired child. And so I wanted to be a red-haired girl. That really appealed to me. I think I had hurt people in a previous life, and I really wanted to make sure I didn't hurt anybody in this life. And so I felt like being a female would make me less likely to go to war or to get in a fight or hurt other people.
Here's one thing that I just want to add in is that a lot of times people, when they're doing past life regressions, they'll find out that they were a woman in a past life. And they're like, oh, what do you mean? I couldn't have been a woman. I'm a man. I've always been a man. Right. But if you're always a man, how are you going to learn all the lessons that you need to learn? Right. You have to be both man and female, duality. You can't just be a man forever. And so you switch off. Sometimes you live a couple lives as a man and then you go to a girl. But what I think happens is when people are like transgender and stuff like that, is that people they're misconstruing gender with energy, right? So it's energy. You have feminine energy or you have masculine energy, right? If you have masculine energy, but you're born a woman. And I think the reason why that happens is because people incarnate too many times as a man. And then when they incarnate as a woman, then they don't feel. That's why they say, I feel like, like a woman, a man trapped in a woman's body. You know what I mean? So I think that's part of the reason why people do that. They spent too many lives as one gender.
So I really wanted to be a female for that reason. And I really liked the red hair because it was kind of rare. And that just really appealed to me. But somehow those genes and my personality, it didn't quite work right. I would have been kind of a loner. I would have been kind of socially awkward. I would have had trouble making friends. I would never have gotten married or had children. And so that was a deal breaker for me. It just wasn't what I was looking for. And so we started looking at, okay, well, what about the boys? And there was even less options for red-haired boys, but these parents had all kinds of options for brown-haired boys. So we started looking at, okay, well, what kind of body could I have here with these parents? And so we started looking at what was available, and there's all kinds of options, and I could pick and choose what kind of stuff I wanted. And so my first thought was, okay, well, I want to be really, really good looking, one of the best looking people on the planet, like a model. And my parents, these people had that option available to them. I could have picked those genes, but my guides kind of pointed out, okay, well, if you choose that, women are going to treat you differently. You're not going to be able to resist certain temptations. Okay. And basically you're going to be too promiscuous. And that was all self-evident by what we were looking at. And so I agreed with them, and that just wasn't what I was looking for. It wasn't the right fit for where I am in my spiritual advancement. It would have been better for me not to give into those kind of temptations. Anyway.
And you have to go through everything too. Like you have to live a life rich. You have to live a life poor. You have to live a life in the middle, boy, girl, good looking, really not good looking, famous, not famous. So that's how you become an evolved soul, is by learning these lessons with everything that the universe has to offer.
So I reduced the attractiveness down to something a little more average, not too bad or anything, but not a supermodel, right? And when I reached the right level of attractiveness, I was like, okay, this looks about like what I would want to get. And then we looked at intelligence, and it was very much the same kind of thing. I wanted to be like the smartest guy on the planet, really, really smart. And my guides showed me that, yes, the genes were available to these parents, but if I was super smart, I would have become arrogant. I would look down on other people because they're not smart as me. I would have trouble making friends. And I would end up becoming an atheist. That's just how it would have worked out for me. And so I agreed that wasn't what I was looking for. That wasn't right. It wasn't the right fit for me. So we backed the intelligence down to something more average, intelligent, but nothing groundbreaking, right? And so when we reached the right level of intelligence, I was like, okay, this looks good. And then we looked at, everything about this body, how tall it would be, the eyesight, the quality of my teeth, down to the most intimate detail. I knew everything about this body and what I was going to get myself into. And the guides pointed out, when we made all these decisions, my guides pointed out, okay, well, there's a unintended consequence here. The body you're picking, it will have really bad acne as a teenager. And so we took a close look at that, and it became clear that, this body would have really bad acne for a couple years as a teenager, and that would be difficult. But it was also clear that would help me like learn the stuff I needed to learn. It would actually benefit my soul, even though it would be difficult to go through. And because it would benefit me, and it was only a couple years, I accepted that. And
all the growth happens in uncomfortableness. So every bad thing that you go through, that's what helps you evolve, right? So like a crab grows and it gets uncomfortable, right? So it sheds its shell and then it goes and finds a new shell. But if it never got uncomfortable, it would never shed its shell. So it could continue to grow. So all of the spiritual growth happens in the bad times. So when you go through a bad time, you're going through that so that you can learn a lesson, but it's up to you to determine what the lesson is. And the blessing always comes after the lesson is learned, just like the sunshine always comes out after the rain. So if you go through something bad, like you have really bad acne and you get, made fun of a lot, and you just say, oh man, that was just a terrible experience. I didn't learn anything from it. It was just a terrible experience I had to go through. Well, then that means that you went through that in vain, right? You're supposed to learn something from that.
What really stands out to me now is how willing I was to put myself through a couple years of difficulty, because it seems so short from the spiritual perspective. Like it seemed like nothing to go through 2 years of those difficulties. Anyway, when we reached what we thought was the appropriate body, we started looking at other stuff. And so the guides, essentially, they had a lot of stuff planned out for my life, a lot of things that they thought should happen. And so we started looking at some of the events from my previous lives. They would show me an event from a previous life, and then we would look at how that would have some kind of a consequence, or it would set the stage for what I would experience in this upcoming life. And one of the events that's really straightforward and probably the easiest one is, in a previous life, they showed me where I'd gotten in a fight. I had beaten up a guy pretty bad. Like I had been a stronger guy, muscular and tall. And they showed me this fight where I had beat up this other guy pretty badly. And from the spiritual perspective, it was clear that I could have avoided that fight. It was unnecessary. I went too far. And it's kind of like I had set the stage for something that now I had to receive it, or I wrote a check and now I had to cash it. There's a lot of ways to say this, or you could just say karma. But they showed me that in order to learn my lessons and not to engage in that kind of behavior, I was going to receive what I had given out previously. And essentially the plan.
When he started talking about this stuff, I started thinking about empathy, and how there's certain situations where I feel empathy for people, and some people, like, they really don't like a specific type of person, and it's kind of like a cultural norm or something. And like, I feel empathy for these people. And so I started thinking, well, maybe in my past life that I did that thing, or that I was this type of person that people don't like, you know what I mean? And that's why I feel this empathy towards this person. Just a theory.
Plan was that I was going to get in a fight as a teenager, and I was going to have my nose broken, and that was going to be very difficult. It wasn't any kind of punishment, but it was like an education. And by receiving what I had previously given out, I would learn not to do such things, and it would help me progress spiritually. And until I faced and received what I had given out, like, that event would hold me down. It would keep me from progressing in the spiritual realms. It would be a problem for me until I went through an experience like that. And so I accepted that. And then they showed me a number of other things, stuff I had done in a previous life. And some of it is, kind of upsetting to know that I had done some of this stuff in a previous life. I had hurt people, abused my privileges, abused my power, lied, all kinds of stuff that I had done previously. That would play into this life I was about to lead. And I would essentially be receiving all kinds of stuff that I had previously done. And it wasn't all bad. It's not like everything I had done previously was bad. There was some good stuff in there too that would make my life easier now. Times I had helped people, things I had done that helped society advance and get better. There's all kinds of stuff. It was a mixed bag of good and bad. But they showed me that, what I had done previously, it was now being played into this plan for my upcoming life. And they wanted me to agree that there was all kinds of stuff I needed to agree to. Like they weren't going to force different things on me. They needed my agreement. And so it was kind of like a negotiation. There were some things where I didn't accept what they had planned for me,
This is your soul contract. It's referred to as a soul contract. So like he's saying, you plan your whole life ahead of you. This is like what Dolores Cannon, a lot of spiritual teachers will tell you when they do past life regressions and they find out about this stuff. And so you have these circumstances that are going to come into your life and you are supposed to learn from them, but you have free will. So if you don't learn from the lesson, right, then you never notice like when your intuition is screaming at you and you don't learn from the lesson, and then God just keeps putting the same circumstances with different people in your life until you learn the lesson. So in this life, if you don't learn your lesson, then I refer to that as summer school. You just got to keep learning that same lesson until you finally learn the lesson. And if you pass away and you still don't learn the lesson, well, then that's repeating the grade, right? Now you don't get to go to the next grade. Now you got to come back and repeat the grade.
Or we worked out an alternative and it was slightly different. But we worked through what kind of events would take place in my life. And then there was like other souls that were planning their life also. And so there was arrangements that were made between me and other souls. In some cases, they would help me. In some places, I would help them. It was kind of a mix. And a lot of the relationships I would have in life, they were planned out. The guides said I would always maintain my free will and I could alter this stuff at any time during my life, but this would be the baseline plan. And they would kind of like with my agreement, they would be able to keep me on track. But
so you have free will and the spirit guides will try to keep you on track. You all have an angel, at least one angel that's with you all the time. And you have spirit guides that are with you all the time and they can help you, but they can't intervene unless you ask them. And once you ask for their help, they really get to work and start helping. But it's like he said, if you get off track, we'll be there to guide you. So it's essentially, the way I look at it is like GPS, and you put your GPS on, you're going this way and you're supposed to turn left here, but you don't turn left, right? You keep going straight, you miss the turn. So then what does the GPS say? It says rerouting, right? That's what your spirit guides will do. They'll reroute you to get you back to the spot that you're supposed to go so that you can learn your lesson.
Anytime if I changed my mind during life, I could alter course. And they kind of like already had that planned out too, but I don't know, that gets a little confusing for me. But this basic plan for my life was planned out in pretty big detail with all these other souls too. And there was times where some kind of shortcoming or difficulty for me would play in and actually help another person with their growth and development. And it was all planned out. All these different lives were how they were intermingled. It was planned out to perfection, honestly. And so with that, we took another look at this life in totality, everything that was going to go on, all these different decisions together. And they asked me if I was sure I was willing to go through this. And I agreed. And with that, it's like the decision was made. And so then they showed me the conception of the body, and not from like a a physical sexual view, but from like a spiritual view. And the creation of the body from a spiritual view was a very beautiful event. It was clear it had a big significance, like it was important. And then I could see that I didn't fully merge with this body until right before birth. Prior to that, I was just kind of enjoying myself and going around. I wasn't like physically tied to this spot.
So like when you are in the womb, that's what happens is there's like a cord. It's like when you go to sleep, you're always attached to the 3D reality with this cord, right? For the lack of a better term. But you're an internal soul, right? So when you sleep, you're going into other dimensions and you're doing other things. You're getting advice from your spirit guides, right? Like think about it. Your soul, which is what you are, you're a soul. You're not your body or your mind. You're a 3-part triune being, body, mind, and soul. But your mind and your body are just possessions that you have. What you are is a soul, singularity, pure consciousness. So when you go to sleep, you're going and experiencing all these other things because your body is the thing that needs rest, not your soul, right? So imagine how bored your soul would be, right? If they just have to lay here for 8 hours waiting for you to wake up. So it's going and doing other things. And when it's time to wake up, again, you're always attached. So when it's time to wake up, then you're attached with this cord and then you come back. And that's kind of like what he's talking about when you're in the womb. You're there, but you're not really like fully attached to it yet until right before birth. And that's when the cord really kicks in.
Body until right before birth. Anyway, with that, my question was answered, and it's like I was back to floating next to my body. And then I had one more important question, which was, okay, well, what happens between lives? Like, what happens to all these different souls after they live their life? Like, what are they doing between lives? And so I was re-shown a memory of what I had been doing between different lives. Like I got to see where I had been at various stages of my development. And it was clear that, we live a life and then we spend time in the afterlife. And then we live a life and then we spend time in the afterlife. And it's kind of like, it's like day and night on earth. It's kind of the same kind of thing where we live for a while and then we're in the spiritual realm for a while. Anyway, so I saw that I had been to some pretty horrible places after some of my lives. In one of these places or realms, I had been I guess I had been a bad person. Like I hurt people, I was angry. And after that life, I still had that same kind of mindset where I wanted to hurt other people. I wanted to dominate them. And I had been, I existed as like a horrible creature, just really misshapen. Instead of arms, we had like talons or claws. And I was with a whole bunch of other souls who were just like me. And we were in a state of kind of like darkness, not complete darkness, but mostly darkness. And we were just fighting constantly. We just wanted to kill each other. We just wanted to hurt each other. And that's all we did. And it was absolutely miserable. And, I got to see that memory again of how I had existed. And it was just absolutely awful. I couldn't even describe how horrible it was. It was worse than any experience that's possible on earth. Like that's how horrible it was. And we didn't have any memory of a past and we didn't have any hope for a different future. We were just miserable and we just fought with each other constantly. And no matter how bad we injured each other, those wounds would quickly heal. They didn't last. But eventually I got tired of the fighting and I didn't want to fight anymore. Instead, I tried to help one of the other souls that was with me. And as soon as I tried to help another one of these creatures that was with me, I was lifted up out of this fight by a being of light. And a couple of beings of light had been above this whole horrible fight. And as soon as I stopped fighting and wanted to help someone, they lifted me
Yes, I think he did say beam of light, not beam.
out. And they told me that I no longer belonged in this horrible place. And that they had a way for me to continue my progression. And as I understand it, they then helped me transition into a different life. And then I saw another place I had been between lives. I had been in a place of darkness with a whole bunch of other souls. We were kind of just standing around, lost and confused. It wasn't miserable, but it was a little bit unhappy. And I remember there was a female that was using all kinds of profanity and cussing, and the profanity that she would use was so much worse than what you hear on Earth. Somehow, the words or what she was saying, it was way worse than the kind of profanity you hear on Earth.
He must have been there with Regan Benson.
And anyway, there were some beings of light that were going around. They were trying to help all of us lost and confused souls. And they had a way to help us, but we were all mistrustful. We were not the kind of souls that would help another person. Like the lives we had led, we weren't helping anybody. And so it was a very foreign concept to think that these souls would be there to help us. It was kind of like confusing, and we were mistrustful. And so mostly we just rejected that help and just stayed there. But eventually,
real quick on the speech thing. So words have power and meaning. Like, it's called spelling because you cast a spell, right? So there's lots of stuff that says that the English language specifically is designed to keep you down, in fact, because all the words, I don't remember what they were, but I watched some video on it, but you speak things into existence, right? So your thoughts are a direct reflection of your emotions, and your emotions are what you feel an emotion, and then you think a thought, and then your thought manifests into reality. And once you start learning how to do this, like I do it all the time now, I'll think about someone, and then the next day they'll pop up in like a memory on Facebook, or they'll text me out of the blue. Like literally, I was thinking about my friend the other day, Alex, and I was thinking about the business that he started, which was he's doing these UAs. He's trying to get customers from the government, people that are on probation, so they can do UAs at his place. And I was like, why would you do that? And he's like, oh, because I want to have, I want to lead them to God. I'm going to have like spiritual stuff. And I was like, dude, you can do all that stuff without being part of the government and, requiring people to take UAs. And he's like, yeah, but if they don't do it from me, they're going to do it from someone else. And I'm like, well, dude, that doesn't make it okay. And he's like, all right, man. He's like, I'll think about what you said, man. Appreciate you being real with me. And that was like a month or two ago. And then I was thinking about it like 2 days ago. I was just thinking about, I wonder how he's doing. And then the next day he texted me, hey man, you were right, bro. I closed down that business, man. I'm doing this other thing. So that's the law of attraction. That's your thoughts like manifesting. And once you start becoming good at it, you'll just know that, wow, I'm getting good at this. Just like anything else, practice makes perfect.
eventually, one of these beings of light, I decided I was going to accept their help, and then they helped me transition. And another time between lives, I had, I guess, lived a decent life. And when I got to the afterlife, it was it looked just like a town on Earth. They had streets and buildings, and I remember seeing a light post, and everybody there was very happy. They were doing things just like what they had done on Earth, but in a much happier setting. Everything kind of looked like Earth, but like a happier, prettier, nicer version of everything. And everyone there was very happy. And then I saw another place I had been between lives. And this place was, it was like a city of light. The buildings were all made of light. They were translucent. You can kind of like see through them. It was extremely beautiful. Everybody in this city was ridiculously happy. I couldn't even describe their happiness. And I remembered that basically the plan was that after I was done with this life, I could transition back to one of these very happy states, one of these very happy afterlives. And so I was really happy about that. Like I was ready, I was done with life. Those 6 years of human life, I felt like, okay, great, let's move on. I had been a healthy, reasonably happy child, but none of that compared to what awaited me. And so I was like, okay, this is great. I'm ready to transition back. But kind of like just as soon as I had that thought, this being of light came to me very quickly as I floated there next to my body. And basically he commanded me, he said, you are not supposed to leave your body. Like you need to get back in your body. And it kind of felt like I had done something wrong. Kind of like I had bent the rules, like somehow my soul leaving the body. It's like, my body wasn't damaged enough that should have happened. And somehow I'd managed to will myself out of the body or to it kind of felt like I'd bent the rules a little bit. And anyway, so bam, it's like I was back in my body right away. And I got up. I didn't have any trouble breathing. I walked home, and I tried to tell my mom what had happened. And, I was just a kid, and I had a lot of speech problems at that age. There's a lot of trouble. I had a lot of trouble talking when I was a little kid. Anyway, I couldn't explain this to her at all. But I would think about it every day. I would think about these experiences, what I'd been through, try to understand them. And after maybe 6 months, these guides that had worked with me to plan out this life, they contacted me, mind to mind communication. And it was very clear who they were. It's like a fingerprint. Like I knew exactly who these souls were. They had been the same guides that had worked with me previously. Anyway, they explained that the experience I had was causing problems in my life. It would prevent me from having the kind of life that we had planned out. And so they wanted to alter our agreements and alter some of the plans for my life. And it was going to mean that my life would be more difficult, but I would need those difficulties so that I would be properly prepared to have this experience or to remember this experience. Like some of the difficulties I would face in life would directly prepare me to handle appropriately this information that I had from this experience. And also they explained that because of everything I had seen, I could never develop faith. Like I'd seen all this stuff for myself, and faith, when you don't have absolute proof, is somehow very valuable. There's like a value to people to come here and not have absolute definitive proof of God, but to have faith anyway. Somehow that's very valuable. And I could never have that because I had seen it for myself. And they wanted to hide this experience until I was an adult. And by hiding that experience, it would allow me to lead the kind of life I was supposed to lead and eventually develop faith. And so I agreed, okay, I agree to have this experience hidden and to, the changes to my life plan that are going to be a little bit more difficult. And so I agreed to that. And then I never thought about this experience. I went through life. I got in a fight when I was a teenager and had my nose broken with no memory that this event had been planned out ahead of time. And it was very difficult. And then I had really bad acne, and that was difficult as a teenager to go through that. Other kids aren't always nice about these kind of things. And, I got married, had kids. And then about 12 years ago, I was reading a Newsweek magazine article about a guy named Eben Alexander. He's a neurosurgeon who had a near-death experience. And somehow when I read about his experience, I accepted it on a deeper level. I accepted the existence of God. Like my faith was higher, I think, than it had been previously. And somehow that all triggered these experiences that I had as a kid to come back to me. Like I remembered all this stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, how did I forget all this? And these memories came back to me. And so, I've been trying to process this stuff. Now as an adult, I can understand it a lot better than I could as a little kid. And I guess my life has prepared me to be able to handle some of this information that I guess I couldn't have otherwise. Because some of the stuff I saw is pretty I don't know. I think it's pretty interesting, and it's pretty deep to me. And anyway, so now I try to share what I can about my experience to hopefully to let people know that we're all going to continue to exist when this life ends.
Wow, Aaron, thank you so much. I mean, that was such a detailed experience. I don't know where to start. That was incredible. I'm going to backtrack. So,
Okay.
looking at the face of God, you said it was multiple souls, but what did it feel like?
Loving and just extremely happy. I think the happiness probably stands out the most to me, even though the love and acceptance, like all these souls, they're all in there together, but they love each other and accept each other, and they know each other very intimately, and they're just so happy with each other and happy with existence that it's undescribable. Like there's nothing that compares to it, even close here on Earth.
Do you miss it?
Yeah. Um, you know, these heavenly realms that I saw, life is so easy and so wonderful, and the happiness is undescribable. Yeah, I do miss that. And then the connection that souls have with each other is it's so much deeper than what we have here on Earth. There's like a there's something that I remember during this experience where on Earth there can be like a sexual merger between two people, but in the spiritual realms there's a deeper connection where two souls kind of like combine with each other, and they like share everything about each other, and that's extremely pleasurable, and like I really wanted to get back to that. Like I missed it, and understanding that level of happiness is ahead of me. Sometimes I definitely miss it, but I try to focus on, okay, I'm here on this planet. I have some opportunities. I could hopefully help make the world a little bit better place. And so I try to focus on that as opposed to the happiness that awaits all of us.
And you're incredibly detailed, like your pre-birth plan. Did you see, I'm talking in our humanness here, but did you see what your spirit guides looked like?
Yeah. So they took on an appearance for my benefit. They look like old men with long beards, but I knew, even then I knew like that's just the appearance they were taking on to help me comprehend the situation and to accept their help. They look like old wise men, but that was just like, I consider that to be just the appearance for my benefit. Like that's not how they fundamentally look.
And you communicated telepathically.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and
sorry, please
that telepathic communication, it's really great because there's no misunderstanding. Like I might say something and think I'm very clear, but someone might misunderstand and hear something different, or there might be language differences. But that telepathic communication, there's none of this confusion or misunderstanding. It's just it's very clear and easy to communicate. You can communicate so much information so quickly that way. So it's a much more pleasant way to communicate.
Yeah, and I've heard Dolores Cannon talk about, in these past life regressions, about how you communicate in the spiritual realm, the 5D, and all these other dimensions. And also, not only that, but ETs, because ETs, they don't have vocal cords. They communicate telepathically because they've evolved. I mean, human species is very primitive, right? And I mean, there's these ETs have been around for millions of years, right? And so, yeah, you can just communicate, and that's one thing that they would say. When she did the past life regressions, is just communicating this way is just takes so long. You know what I mean? It's so tedious, right? If you think about it, like if you could just telepathically tell someone exactly how you feel or what you mean, and it just goes in immediately, like you're just downloading something in an instant, and there's no misconstruing what you mean, because with words, like you said, somebody could interpret it in a different way, and somebody says something to you, and then you got to process it, and then you got to think about it, and then you respond to it, and you got to put together more sentences and more words, right?
Thank you. Have they come back to you now that all these rememberings have returned?
Right. Nothing as clear as what I experienced as a kid when they wanted to make changes to my life. But I do feel like from time to time they kind of push me this way or that way. I think there's times I'm making mistakes in life, and they try to say, okay, don't do that. Or there's times I'm doing something right, and they're like, yeah, that's the way you want to do it. But it's not clear. It's more like just a feeling.
I mean, what an incredibly changed perspective of life and all your lives that it must have been. You saw your pre-birth plan and the things that were planned. Of course, you said we had free will. Did you see into your future of this life, events that may occur?
Yeah, I did. I also saw future lives. Like I got a glimpse into future lives. Like,
oh my God, my favorite subject.
Okay. Well, the glimpse into this life, and I'll give you one example. I had a coworker that I remembered from my experience. I remember this guy, but I barely saw him at work. Like we weren't friends. We didn't associate, but I remember him specifically from my experience. And I was thinking, we don't seem to have any kind of deep connection. This doesn't really make any sense. And then, he transferred to a different group, and there was moving of seats around. And then next thing you know, I'm sitting next to this guy for like 3 or 4 years. And so I remember specifically that at one point I was like, this doesn't make any sense. But then here he goes, life puts us right next to each other. And there's a lot of little things like that where there's someone I remember from my experience. Like there's one guy I remember very well from my experience that we had some stuff planned out. And he came and he sat next to me at work for years. And he was actually born 10 years to the day after me. And I specifically remember him from the life planning event. And, and so it's really interesting that not only do I remember this guy, but he's born on my birthday 10 years after me. I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, I was showing bits and pieces of my life and what it would look like. But then future lives, it's like I've been through a lot of the difficult stuff of what the earthly existence is. I've learned to, be good to other people. That it's pretty straightforward.
That's what it's about, fundamentally.
Yeah, okay. And I've learned that. I've accepted it freely. And now I'm at a point where I as I saw it, I could move on to the heavenly realms. And that's what most souls want to do. They just want to, they want to be done with earth and go on and be happy, which I totally
They want to exit. They want to get out.
Yes. I can respect that. I understand. But me, I wanted to, I've reached this point. I'll be able to help the world become a little bit better, and so in my future lives, I'm going to be able to make a bigger benefit to a bigger contribution and help society move in the right kind of way. And I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but it was pretty clear that I'm going to have future lives after this where I will be able to help even more, move things in the right direction.
So like I said earlier in the stream that, Jesus, he didn't need to incarnate on earth, super highly evolved soul, but he did it anyways to help humanity, right? To expand the consciousness of the collective. And there's lots of people that do that, like Gandhi was one of them, people that they come here, they didn't have to come here, but they chose to. So those are those types of people, like those spiritual leaders, like maybe Mother Teresa might have been one and stuff like that. Mother Teresa knew a lot about the law of attraction too. And she said, if you go to an anti-war rally, don't invite me to that. If you go to a pro-peace rally, invite me to that. See, because the law of attraction, like attracts like, the universe doesn't understand don't. Like, I don't want war, right? It only understands that you're thinking about war. So then it attracts more of it to you. That's why I say a lot of times, you kind of have a negative mindset and a victim mentality. And what you're doing is you're creating more of that, right? Like with the whole, the United States is so racist, right? Thing right now. It's like, how are we more racist? I mean, and are we more racist now than we were in the 60s? I mean, in the 90s, there was racism, but it was, hardly at all that racist. I mean, I grew up a man of color, I'm Latino and I grew up in white neighborhoods and I never really experienced any racism. So how all of a sudden are we becoming less evolved and we're all of a sudden more racist, right? It's just the propaganda they want you to believe and they perpetuate it. Like Black Lives Matter stuff, in my opinion, they perpetuate more of it because they think about it all the time and they're in this victim mentality, right? And so that's a whole nother subject, but they do perpetuate it. They literally have been known to disclude white people from coming to their events because they're white, literally engaging in the exact same antics that you're fighting against. Saying, you're a white man, you can't come to this. You know what I mean? Like they're creating the separation. So they're perpetuating it. So Mother Teresa had a good grasp on how to do stuff. Like if you ever read the book, The Secret, like if you're always thinking, oh, I don't want a bad haircut. I don't want a bad haircut. You're going to end up getting a bad haircut because it doesn't matter if you said, I don't want one. What you got to say is, imagine yourself getting an amazing haircut.
Did you have any idea or sense of what the future feels like? I guess not looks like, but what does it feel like? Or were there any insights from that for the future of humanity or our Earth as we know it?
It feels like there's a lot of different possibilities. Like it's not just a set, like this is how it will be. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of dependent on our choices, all the different choices all these different people make. I did see that a lot more technological advancements. Like I think that's pretty certain. And I think in general, the world's moving in like a happier direction where people treat each other better, where we value each person as a person a lot more. And so that's kind of what I saw, but not like I didn't see specific events like this is going to happen or that's going to happen. That's not the kind of thing that was shown to me.
And you mentioned you were lucky to be born in America.
Well, that's just it. It's not luck, though. It's like I had.
It was a choice.
It was a choice, and the reason I was able to make that choice is because I had put in the work to help build America, to help build society back in Europe. Even before that, like I had put in some of the groundwork, the legwork. I had laid the foundation, or helped a lot of other people too. I had done my part to help get America built. That would allow me then to come back here. And
did you see that life, those lives, multiple lives of building the foundations of what we currently know as the United States of
I saw
America?
bits and pieces. I saw a whole lot of bits and pieces from different lives, and it was clear that I had been here. I've been through the cold winters, without proper clothing, without proper food, without clean water, dealing with people trying to kill us. Like I've been through some of these difficulties, not Aaron Green, obviously, but me as a soul. I saw bits and pieces from these different lives, and a lot of it was very difficult.
So for those that haven't experienced what we term as past lives, is it like sort of snippets of a movie that you see?
Right. Yeah, that's a great analogy. Like
It's not the
one of
whole
these highlight
everything.
reels. You see a bit here, a bit here, a bit there. That's kind of what I saw, was little bitty snippets. But it was enough that I could piece some of this together and understand, okay, well, this is what that was, or the time period, or what was going on. I saw how I died in different situations. And it's enough to piece together that I had helped build the country. I'd done some of the difficult work, some of the manual labor that's really hard. I'd helped with a lot of this stuff, and that was pretty obvious. And then even going back further, like even prehistoric times, I saw bits and pieces from what I'm pretty sure are prehistoric times, like some of this early work with these really difficult physical lives where you don't know anything, you're living in a tribal setting. They don't have the benefit of all the knowledge that we have now, just trying to make it through life. But all that is necessary to get the soul ready to freely choose to love others. Like somehow all these difficulties help us mature and grow.
One more question on the past lives or the alternate lives. Are you looking through your own eyes, or you're observing what you know to be your soul in that life?
Yeah, it's like I re-saw it from my own eyes. Like I re-experienced what I had been through before. Brief clips here and there.
Incredibly interesting. And the in-between lives and the dark places you visited. Should people be afraid?
Well, people should be loving, kind, compassionate. That's what people should be, rather than fearing all this bad stuff that I don't think most souls go through that. I think most souls are a little more average. They're not out killing a bunch of people. They're not out doing horrible things. And I think they've got a happy afterlife in store for them. But if you think about a soul that wants to kill a person that wants to kill others, rape, steal, torture others, that is so completely incompatible with what God has in store for us that the whole system is set up so the soul can't really stay in that kind of mindset. They will get what they plan to give out for themselves, and that will quickly allow them to change and realize, okay, this isn't the way I want to be. And by going through such a really difficult experience in the afterlife, they will learn that, hey, I don't want to torture others. I don't want to kill other people, and rather than allowing them to fester and stay at such a low level of thought, going through that really difficult, hellish experience allows them to quickly change and become a more loving, compassionate soul.
Thank you. And I guess also
hell does not exist. It's a construct that the church created, right, to help control you. So, a loving God is not going to say, oh, hey, you worship me, or you're going to burn for eternity in hell, right? It's like when you die, you're met by the elders and you do your life review like this guy did, and there's no judgment, right? There's just either you did it right or you didn't do it right. And if you didn't do it right, then you just got to come back and do it again, right? Until you get it. And then when you're done, you're done. And then, you don't have to come back. Like, he said, a lot of people don't want to come back, and he gets that. And I'm not sure if I'll want to come back, but I don't think I do. But let's see. I think we're almost done here.
Also, what you mentioned with the life review, you felt everyone, like your father, your mother, you felt from their perspective as well. So
yeah, a lot of people describe that. I'm probably not the best one to describe these life reviews because I was so young. But yeah, if you hurt someone else, like, you're going to literally feel that hurt. Or if you help someone else, you're literally going to feel how you've helped them. So, be intelligent with your decisions, and be wise, and do something helpful to anyone you can. And, we all stand to benefit if we can live lives like that, where we're helpful and loving to others.
a simple but complex question. Do you know what is the point of it all? Why is the reincarnation, and why?
Yeah, that was pretty clear. We start out as simple, ignorant souls with no experience. And we go through all these physical experiences because we can quickly learn that it's bad to hurt other people, to steal, to murder, to torture, to lie, to cheat. All that kind of stuff is bad. It brings us bad consequences. And being loving, kind, compassionate, honest, exercising some self-control, all of those traits, all of those characteristics bring us good things. And so by these repeated lives, we learn at a deeper level that we need to be loving, kind, compassionate, honest, have self-control, respectful of other people, forgiving other people, all these good things that we need. We learn those. And so that's kind of the purpose of life, is to give us the education and the knowledge that we will freely accept these loving traits that God wants us to accept.
I guess it's all about love, isn't it? Aaron, I've absolutely loved having you on the show. Oh, my gosh, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the Passion Harvest audience that I haven't asked you?
No, for me, the most important thing is just to love your neighbor, love others through kindness, compassion, acts of service, honesty. And if you live that kind of life, if you act like the kind of person you should act like, you're going to have a much better time in the afterlife.
And in this life, probably too.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, some studies have come out that show one of the things that leads a person to the most happiness is just being good to other people. Like, it actually makes us happier, it makes our lives easier. People are focused on money and all this kind of stuff, and it actually doesn't make you happy. But if you just try to be good to other people, that'll bring you more happiness.
Beautiful, simple, perfect message. Aaron Green, thank you so much for being on Passion Harvest.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you. Bye, Aaron.
So that is the Passion Harvest podcast. So if you like that, go check her out. Leave her a comment, subscribe, let her know that I said hello, Empirical Miracle, not DMA. So that's it, guys. I just felt spiritually guided to share this one because it really resonated with me. So, but I want to get back more into doing some more of these, Empirical Miracle shows. This is the first time I've ever played another video on this channel, but I want to get back into doing more of this stuff too. So I have a little bit more time now that, I got the shadow ban on the DMA channel. So, although I do need to start editing some more of those videos so that when that goes away, it'll be ready to go. But that's why I was doing this today. So thanks everyone for coming in. Jack, appreciate you, bro. Had a bunch of people in here coming in and out. So thanks guys. Raymond, appreciate you guys, man. Everyone have a great rest of your night. I might go live on the Christopher Corva channel later. So check on it. All right, guys. Love and light.